The logo on your chainsaw gets all the credit. But the chain that actually cuts the wood was copied from a beetle's jaw by one man in an Oregon forest. And the company he built by accident is now owned by Warren Buffett for $37 billion. In 1946, in the timber country of the Pacific Northwest, a logger and machinist named Joseph Buford Cox was clearing a jammed saw when he noticed something odd in a rotting log. Timber beetle larvae had tunneled through the wood in a tight, alternating side-to-side pattern. Nothing like the straight, aggressive teeth on the saw chains loggers used at the time. Cox studied the insect's jaw for weeks, sketching the shape until he understood why it cut so cleanly. He reverse-engineered that pattern into a new style of cutting tooth, one that sliced instead of ripped. In 1947, he founded the Oregon Saw Chain Company in Portland to manufacture it. It seemed at the time like a small regional business built around one strange idea. Nobody involved could have guessed that this single beetle jaw design would eventually end up on almost every chainsaw sold on the planet. That beetle-inspired design is known today as the chipper chain, and it became the template underneath nearly every chainsaw chain manufactured anywhere in the world. Stihl, Husqvarna, Echo, Makita, regardless of the logo stamped on the powerhead, the vast majority of them run cutting geometry that traces directly back to Cox's observation of a rotting log. That's the part most chainsaw owners never learn. The brand on the machine controls the engine and the housing, but the actual cutting edge, the part doing all the work, is often built on principles that have nothing to do with that brand's own engineering. It's a design so quietly dominant that it never needed a marketing campaign. It simply became the industry standard because it solved a problem better than anything that came before it. Before Cox's invention, chainsaw chains were notorious for vibrating heavily, cutting inefficiently, and dulling quickly. Logging crews often spent almost as much time sharpening chains as they did cutting timber. The chipper chain changed that balance. By using a rounded cutting profile inspired by nature, it sliced through wood more smoothly while reducing kickback and improving chip removal. The result wasn't just faster cutting, it was less operator fatigue, longer chain life, and lower operating costs. Those advantages mattered enormously in commercial logging, where every extra minute of productivity translated directly into higher profits. It wasn't simply an engineering improvement. It fundamentally changed the economics of timber harvesting. Here's the part of the story almost nobody connects to chainsaws at all. In 1949, while still running Oregon Saw Chain, Cox needed a reliable way to cast the hardened metal teeth for his own chains, so he started a small in-house casting operation. In 1953, he spun that operation off as its own separate company, Precision Cast Parts Corp. At the time, it was little more than a supplier making metal components for Cox's own chainsaw business. A side project, not a long-term strategy. But precision investment casting turned out to be far more valuable than anyone expected. The same process capable of producing hardened chainsaw teeth could also manufacture components with extraordinary dimensional accuracy, opening opportunities in industries where failure simply wasn't an option. The leap from forestry equipment to aerospace may sound enormous, but the underlying manufacturing challenge was remarkably similar. Both chainsaw cutters and jet engine components require metals that can withstand tremendous stress while maintaining extremely precise shapes. Investment casting made that possible. As turbine technology advanced through the 1950s and 1960s, demand exploded for manufacturers capable of producing complex heat-resistant parts that conventional machining struggled to create. Precision Cast Parts found itself perfectly positioned for that future. Over the following decades, Precision Cast Parts moved almost entirely away from its chainsaw origins and into aerospace manufacturing, producing the complex cast and forged components used inside jet engines, airframes, and industrial gas turbines. It became one of the world's largest suppliers of structural castings and engine parts to companies like Boeing, Airbus, Pratt, and Whitney, Rolls-Royce, and GE Aviation. industries where tolerances are measured in fractions of a millimeter, and every component must survive extreme temperatures and enormous mechanical loads. By the early 2000s, the company had become so deeply integrated into global aerospace manufacturing that millions of airline passengers were unknowingly flying with precision cast parts components every day. What started as a way to keep one Oregon chainsaw company supplied with cutting teeth had evolved into a business supporting some of the most advanced machines ever built. By 2015, precision cast parts had grown so large and so essential to aerospace supply chains that it caught the attention of the most famous investor in the world. In August 2015, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway announced it would acquire precision cast parts outright, and the deal closed in January 2016 for roughly $37 billion in cash. At the time, the largest acquisition Berkshire Hathaway had ever made. Buffett later described it as exactly the kind of business Berkshire prefers, a company with deep technical expertise, long-term customer relationships, and products that competitors couldn't easily replicate. The company that resulted, almost as an afterthought, from a chainsaw entrepreneur's side project now sat inside the portfolio of one of the most closely watched investors on Earth. Meanwhile, Cox's original chainsaw company never stopped evolving either. It was bought by John Gray in 1953 and renamed Omark Industries, then acquired by Blount Industries in 1985, and renamed Blount International in 1993. Throughout those ownership changes, one thing remained remarkably consistent. The company continued investing in cutting technology rather than abandoning its roots. Oregon chains became trusted by professional loggers, arborists, and forestry crews across the world, building a reputation based not on flashy advertising, but on consistent performance in demanding conditions. In 2015, the same year Precision Cast Parts was being sold to Buffett, Blount was taken private in an $855 million deal, and in 2021 it was renamed once again to Oregon Tool, the name it still carries today. Oregon Tool remains the largest saw chain manufacturer on Earth, producing millions of chains every year for professional forestry, agriculture, landscaping, and homeowner equipment. And remarkably, those chains still descend from the same beetle jaw pattern Joseph Buford Cox sketched after watching an insect chew through a decaying log nearly 80 years ago. It's a reminder that some of history's biggest industrial revolutions don't begin in laboratories or billion-dollar research centers. Sometimes they begin with someone paying attention to nature, asking a simple question, and recognizing an answer that everyone else walked right past. So the next time you swap a chain onto your saw, you're holding a shape copied from an insect's jaw, mass-produced by a company with a direct line back to one man in 1946. That same man, almost by accident, also built a $37 billion aerospace supplier, now owned by Warren Buffett. Two global industries, two enormous companies, and it all traces back to a logger who stopped to look closely at a rotting log instead of just clearing it out of his way. That's the kind of connection most people will never learn just by using the tool. It makes you wonder how many other everyday objects are hiding a story just as strange. What everyday object do you think is secretly hiding a billion-dollar story like this one? Tell us in the comments. We might make it the next video.